Happy November, everybody. My name is Kai. I will be presenting my research reflection assignment today on enhanced memory and hippocampal connectivity in humans 2 days after brief resistance exercise. I want to give some background on my reflection assignment. Teru Hashimoto, Rikimasha Haota, and Ryutu Kawashima, they are all graduates of Tohoku University. Miss Hota, she actually was a graduate from the Tohoku University of Medicine. That's good to know. She has a lot of background on brain medicine and heart medicine. Whereas Mr. Hashimoto, he was actually a chair and a lead chair on the brain imaging committee at Tohoku University, and Mr. Rikamasha was also a chair on brain imaging at the uni. With this, all three of these researchers, I feel like it was important to say their status as alumni of the university because not only do they have some background on brain imaging and just concepts of the brain, I feel like their backgrounds give them extensive research and information on how to correctly apply this experimental and correlational study. As you can see, I said there are mixed scientific methods afoot. And the reason that I say that because within correlational scientific methods, you want to find a reason for a cause and effect, or if they correlate together based off of what's happening. So I feel like based off the hypothesis, does the hippocampus region increase in activity with recall memory after resistance training? I feel like there's a cause and effect relationship there because the theory that is being tested is can the person improve their hippocampal region, so their recall memory within the hippocampus region, pre and after? So there's an experiment before where they are tested with a Ray auditory verbal learning test, and that's basically a test where the contestant has to basically learn verbal material. It's unrelated nouns, spoken presentations, and this is all to focus on memory within the hippocampus region. That's one of the tests that they had. And another test was just a positive and negative effects schedule, so acronym PANAS. And it's used to basically self report instruments of somebody's internal feelings. And that was also used to test the inner workings of the hippocampus if it's also improving the way that these people are feeling, so their memory also improves. But we mainly want to focus on recall memory in this experiment. I feel like it's also experimental because when speaking about the brain, a lot of the times it's not considered that different vices and the way that you take care of your body, your temple, it can affect the brain directly, whether you like it or not. Smoking, vaping, drinking, alcohol, drugs, it doesn't matter what it is. If you're not feeding your brain the correct type of food and nutrients, you will ultimately go through neurological deterioration. So it's a bit experimental in that region as well because the participants within this study are all uni students. They voluntarily participated. So it was about 34 men and 26 women who volunteered for this experiment. And one of the requirements is they don't exercise more than once a week in high resistance training. And as we all know, with voluntary studies, it can be accredited for the students. Like the students can get maybe some money, they can get credit, it can be required, whatever the case may be. So we have to take into account that not everybody is going to be truthful with the voluntary experiment. So to back up this research article, all three of these researchers, including other authors of this study, they actually sourced and, basically referenced back to a lot of different studies that they had done themselves. So Mr. Hashimoto and Miss Hota, they had actually previously participated in the aerobic exercise cardiorespiratory fitness in the human hippocampus study. And it's very similar to this study, but it's just a little bit more broad. It was also conducted at the university, but instead of using high resistance training, which is going to be physically more challenging, aerobic exercises were implemented to see if the hippocampus is just going to be able to activate more. They used um, they use magnetic resonance imaging, which everybody knows, the MRI scan where you lay flat, you get your brain scanned for different activity in this region. They actually used a pre scan of the MRI to test their hippocampal regions. With most university students, they were already pretty active because you have to use your brain on the daily as a college or university student. And then they were scanned afterwards as well to see if there was an improvement in the hippocampus region and also the frontal lobe region to see if there was any improvement in the activity after aerobic exercises on a regular basis. As you can see, I have this image below me, and this is actually a part of the study where the brain was scanned before. And as I said, you have university students who have to use their recall memory, their episodic, their somatic memories. They have to maintain information. So it was already a bit active, but what they actually found, and why I'm very confident in this study, is afterwards there was still an improvement. Although it was slight, it wasn't very drastic, there was still an improvement. So that's a good thing. And that's why I feel very, very confident within this study, just because they referenced so many sources that had already found previously that any kind of exercise that is going to stimulate the cardiovascular system is going to stimulate the brain, thus stimulating the hippocampus region, thus improving memory. Whenever putting this research under a specific pillar of psychology, it was a bit hard at first for me to decipher which one I would like to put it under, because you can implement so many different things into what this study actually means. You have a specific hypothesis, but the conclusion can come out in so many different ways because there's so many factors to implement. Ultimately, I chose the number two pillar because it does have to do with memory, perception, thinking, and intelligence. Those are all things that are going to be implemented into this study because you have very intelligent university students at a high prestige university who are going to need to have good memory in order to be good doctors, lawyers, whatever else you have it. And I believe that's the main reason why I put it under this pillar of study. As you can see, I also included this small graph below to emphasize on why we're also focusing on this pillar two of memory, because it's going from information, sensory memory, to working short-term memory. You see you're losing a little bit of information as you go, to long-term storage, losing more, and then retrieval, which you have recall memory, where you're actually going to be able to free recall, a type of memory where you basically intake a task or a memory or a fact and you're able to bring it back into your brain because it's stored in that term storage in your brain. So I included that just to kind of visualize what this study is actually going to be about and how it's testing the hypothesis of, is that hippocampus region going to be able to be stimulated more after exercise, thus being able to retrieve more long-term storage memory, and then you're able to free recall. I'm going to move my camera. I'm extremely confident in this research study just because of the testing that was done to eliminate a lot of variants that I had mentioned previously. You have a lot of different variables that can go into how the hippocampus region is going to behave: autism, vices, exercise. All of these things that affect your body will also affect your brain. But I found it very interesting that they did so many different significant tests with body weight, not just body weight, but with brain activity, with the MRI scans, with the different types of scans that they did. And they also tested that against a control group of university students. So keep in mind that these are all very intelligent university students. So they should relatively still have good memory, right? So basically, I listed over here to the left how they actually did find that whenever they were training over the 2 day period, their memory improved, not only because of their cardiovascular muscles improving and because of their weight improving, but because that hippocampal region is being improved and stimulated even more because of the body being stimulated. So you can see on the chart below me the first dot in the darker line is pre with our training group. So as you can see, they're a little bit behind the control group, but you just want to, it's not that big of a difference. Whenever you're looking at this on the actual chart, as I said, there's not significant or just, as you could say, just like drastic changes. So these two groups are on the same pillar right now. You can see it go from 9 to 10, and this is the measurement of the MRI scan, basically measuring the size of the hippocampus region that is being activated. After these different kinds of tests and implementing different factors like weight, height, and gender, because as I stated, it was 34 men and 24 women, as you can see, the training group actually improved. They went up in the activity of their hippocampus region, and the control group went down. So this is thus proving further that with that little bit of training, that was only 1 day, and then they waited 2 days for the post experiment, which was them doing the same recall test and the same actual revolt test, which is basically ray auditory verbal learning test. They actually improved. Uh, So these are some of the terms that I chose to include, and just some new terms that I actually found while studying my research project. I like to emphasize on the fact that there is episodic and semantic explicit memories that are at work here. Because as you can see with episodic, it's actually personally experienced events. So these university students, they weren't chosen at random. As I said previously, they either did it for the class, they volunteered, or they were expected to do it for credit. So these are still personal events because even as a university student, not all university students are going to revolve around being involved in different experiments. So it's going to be a personal event. It's one of our two conscious memory systems. And then you also have semantic, where it's actually facts and general knowledge. So although it was a personal event that they want to remember, they're actually being tested on facts and general knowledge with what I was talking about earlier with the Ray auditory verbal learning test and the positive and negative affect schedule, testing their feelings and also testing like what they can actually remember with specific tests. So, whenever thinking about this kind of research, it's great that it comes from both a psychological and a physiological perspective. Because, as I was stating previously, the body is being stimulated with different cardiovascular, you know, stimulation, such as your heart beating fast, your muscles being worked out, thus, your blood is going to pump further. And when your blood pumps, it also pumps up to the brain. So I love that they not only included the psychological aspect of testing recall memory, but also the physiological aspect of is this resistance training, which again is more than just regular workouts or regular walking around. It's going to be actual weight training that is going to challenge the body, whether you're a male, female, or anybody in between. It's going to challenge your body, and that was the whole point of the exercise. They didn't want to do memory tests that even the most basic person could do. They purposely did the revolt test so it would challenge university students who are already expected to be using their hippocampal region